made a lot of progress in writing both positive and negative Cypress tests. But so far, we've identified all of the elements we've interacted with by using IDs. Unfortunately, you'll often find yourself in the position of needing to identify an element that doesn't have an ID. This is by far the most frustrating thing about UI automation. In this week's lesson, we're going to learn 6 different ways to locate an element in Cypress, and a 7th way that won't work in Cypress but will work with other automation tools. This lesson will be a bit longer than usual, so let's dive right in. We're going to make a new file to learn about all of the different ways to locate elements. So in the E2E folder, let's click New File, and we'll give this file a name, elementlocators.spec.cy.js. Okay, now this isn't really going to be a test, but we will put it in test format. So we will say describe, and we'll call it element locator practice. And then we'll put our parentheses and our arrow function. And then our name of our test is going to be it can locate an element 6 different ways. Comma, parentheses, arrow function. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we are just going to go to the website. So we will say cy.visit. I don't know why it's doing that. Let's fix it this way. HTTPS, thinking, tester, contact list, Heroku app.com. Okay. So then the next thing we will do is we will locate an element by ID. This should be pretty easy because we've been doing that the whole time. We're going to add some comments to our code so that we can see exactly how we are locating each element. So we will say locate an element by ID. And then we will say cyget. And then the first thing we need to do when we are on the login screen is type something into the email field. So we're going to get that email by ID. And then we will say type. And then we will say Monday morning fake.com, or you can type in whatever email you are using to log in. So there's how to locate the element by ID. Now let's locate the password element, but we will locate it by type instead. So in order to do that, let's go to our website. And if we right-click in the password field and then choose inspect, we can see that the type of our input here is password. So we're going to choose the element by type. So let's go back to our code and we will say cy.get. And then we need to use quote marks first and then a bracket, type equals, and then password, which needs to be in single quotes. And then at the end of the single quotes, then we need the square bracket and then the double quote and then the ending parentheses. And then we'll say type, and then we put in the password. Oh, and let's give this our comment here. This is how we're going to locate an element by type. Okay. Now we will locate an element by text. So let's put in that comment, locate an element by text. So the next thing we need to do when we're logging in is we need to click on the submit button. So let's inspect our submit button. And we can see that the text for the submit button is just plain submit, which you could actually tell by looking at the submit button also. So let's go back to our code and we will say cy.contains, And then we'll put in submit, which is the text of our button, and then a dot, and then click. Okay, and so then at this point, we will have logged in. The next thing we're going to do on the main page is we are going to click on the logout button, and we will locate that by class. So let's quick log in here. So this is the button that we want to locate. So let's right click on that and we will click inspect. And now we will look for the class of that element. And we can see it right here. It says class logout. So let's locate that element by class. Locate element by class. And we will say cy get. And then in order to identify the class, first we use the quote marks and then we use a dot and we say whatever the name of the class is, which in this case is logout. So then we'll do dot and click because we're going to click the button. Okay, so far we have 4 different ways to locate that element. Let's run our test and let's make sure that we've located our elements correctly on all of those different elements. So we will say npm run test. Okay, and let's run our element locator spec test. And it looks like we were able to log in by locating those 3 elements, email, password, and submit. And then we were also able to log out by clicking on the logout button. We can see that right here in this step. Okay, let's go on. So now we're going to get a little trickier. We are going to locate an element by CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet, and it specifies how HTML elements are to be displayed. So using CSS, you can select an element by name or ID or class, and you can kind of chain those elements together to identify the element that you want. So if we go back to our main page, we are going to try and locate this element right here, the email field, by CSS. So let's right click on that and we will choose inspect. Okay, and we can see the element right here. But instead of locating it by the class type or the ID, we're going to locate it by CSS. We can see that the first element right here is input. So we're going to try and locate the element by input in CSS. And the way we're going to check this is we're going to do Control F right here to bring up this little search field that says find by string selector or XPath. So we're going to type in input. We can see how many elements are identified by that input directive. So we can see we've got one right here, but there's also one right there. So we've got 2 fields called input. So we're going to need to be more specific. Which input item do we want to choose? So what we're going to do in Cypress is we're going to say, please just choose the first one. So we're going to say cy.get, and then we'll put in input, which is the name of the element we're trying to locate. And then we're going to do a dot, and then we're going to do first. So what we're saying is look for all of the elements that are inputs and then take the first one. That's the one we want. And so then we'll click type, and then we can type in that email address. Okay, let's save and let's run the test again to see if that element was located correctly. Yep, it looks like it was located correctly again, because there we are. We populated that field with our email. Okay, now we're going to learn another identifier that is not used in Cypress, but it is used in other automation tools such as Selenium or Playwright. And that is XPath. So we will say locate an element by XPath. And then I'm going to say if XPath was supported, which of course it is not in Cypress. So XPath stands for XML Path Language, and it's something that can allow you to navigate through elements in an XML document. It uses a path-like syntax to navigate with slashes in between the elements. So let's go back to our web page and let's look at the password. And we can see it right here. So we are going to locate this element by starting with the form right here. So we're going to say //form, and that gets us to the form. Okay, and then what's underneath that? The next thing that's underneath that is a paragraph, P for paragraph. So we'll say /P. Okay, now we've found that one. And then, oh, but we don't want that one. We actually want the second one. So we will say P2. And that gets us to the second paragraph. And then within that, then we want the input element. Okay, so we've confirmed that we've found the password field correctly. So let's see what it would look like if this was supported in Cypress. So if it was supported in Cypress, and we're going to keep this commented out because we know it's not going to work, we'll say cy.get, and then we would put in the XPath, and then we would say type, and then our password. The final element locator strategy I'm going to show you is the one that is actually the best, and that is using a data automation ID. You can add data automation IDs to all of your elements in your application, and then they become really, really easy to find. So I'm going to say locate an element by automation ID. Now, the only trouble is I don't actually have any data automation IDs in my website because it was easy enough to do the regular IDs. So I'm going to show you what one would look like if we put it in the code, and then I will show you how to use it when you are locating it in Cypress. So I'm just going to type in my app doesn't have any automation IDs, just to remind you of that. And now let's go to our page. And we are going to look at the submit button. So let's right click on that and we'll say inspect. Okay, there it is. Now what we can do right here is we can right click on it and we can say edit as HTML. So I can show you what it would look like if we had put in a data automation ID. So I would say data CY, so that's like Cypress data, equals submit. There. So we can't save this and have it be part of the app right now. We would have to redeploy the application, but that's what it would look like if we had that data identifier in there. And you can ask your developers, or you can do it yourself, to go into the code, add these data IDs, and then redeploy, and then you will be able to locate them with your test. So let's go back to our code. And I'm going to comment this out also because, like I said, we can't really locate the element this way right now, but it would look like this: cy.get, and then square brackets, and then data-cy equals submit. and then the ending square bracket, and then the single quote. And then we would say click to click the button. So those are 7 different ways to locate the element. And the reason why we've called the test here 6 different ways is because we can really only locate 6 different ways. And actually in my app, we can only locate 5 different ways. But this way right here is actually valid, and you can use it in your application that you are testing. Thanks for watching this video. If you found my training helpful, please like this video and share it with others. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single lesson. If you're enjoying Monday Morning Automation and you'd like to learn even faster, be sure to check out my book, The Complete Software Tester, which is available in Kindle and paperback on Amazon.com.